Alright, for your final book project, I'm giving you two options to bind together your book. And this is the first one, the Japanese stab binding. So let's get started. Stab bindings are indeed traditional Japanese bindings, often thought to have been used for ledger books and other important accounting or notebook demands. In this photo, you see one from a Japanese store. For the stab binding, we'll actually be showing through our stack of prints, and we need to accommodate for this by making a new printing template. Since we'll need that extra inch for binding on the left-hand side, you need to make a template that has an extra inch on the border on the right-hand side, as you see here. You could create a new one or use your pre-existing one and just make the needed change. It's important, don't forget. Let's discuss the items you're going to need. You're going to need your good prints ready to go. Make sure they're completely dry. If you want a cover sheet, go ahead and cut those exactly to the size of your printing paper. I'm just using some leftover paper I had from another project. You can do the same. You'll need your cutting tools, a ruler, all of those good things that you've used on and off throughout the semester. And you'll also need some paper clips or other sort of clips to hold your book together, and needle and thread. Use whatever you have available. The thread that I'm using is a cotton thread used for book binders, so it's a little thicker, but you could use typical sewing thread or even embroidery thread for this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is stack my prints and tap them on the top and side to even things out. We want everything to align properly. Then I'll do the same with the front and the back cover. Just lining everything up. Take a little bit of time to do this. Once I've lined everything up, that's when I'm going to grab the paper clips and start to clip things together. Now, if I've noticed things have shifted, I'll take a second and realign everything. Taking a little bit of time and setting this up well will make sure that your book comes together in the best possible way. No rushes. So the side of the prints that has that extra inch added to it is the side I'm going to be sewing on. So I need to make sure those are all lined up and I'm aware which side that is as I'm moving forward in the next steps. So make sure you don't paper clip that side as carefully so you know which one it is. So then again, I'm going to really paper clip this together well. So as I'm sewing and moving through the creation binding of the book, things don't shift on me. So I'm just using standard paper clips here. You should have some at home. Okay, so now let's create a template for actually stabbing into your book. It's best to do this on a scrap sheet of paper so that you don't have to mark your book up. So I've cut a sheet of paper an inch tall and as long as the book. On the side I'll bind it, and the first thing I'm going to do is make a line at a 1/2 inch in. Once I've made that line at a 1/2 inch, I'm going to create 4 dots that are evenly spaced across the book. So you might have to do a little bit of math or trust your intuition to get this to come out exactly correct. I'm using the red colored pencil so you can see it really well here. Okay, I'm going to paper clip the template to the side of the book, and this is really important, that has that extra 1 inch that we built into the template. So make sure you line up the template with the side of the book that has the extra inch. So once I've made that template and I've got my 4 evenly spaced holes, I'm going to actually paper clip that to the book. And then I'm going to grab a needle, and right where those red darts are, I'm going to force it through. And you can see I'm having to give it a little bit of oomph. And I'll do another one, twisting it and pushing it all the way through. And I'm going to do that on all 4 holes of the book. Let's look at that again. You can see I paperclip this down, make sure everything's lined up. And then when I grab the needle and I start to pierce or stab through my pages, I'm going to hold with my opposite hand, but I do make sure my fingers are out of the way so I'm not stabbing myself. The goal here is just to take the needle through the pages of the book, not through you. Before I remove the template, I flip the book over and just double check to make sure I can see all 4 of my sewing stations now pierced through the book. And now we're ready to get started. Okay, I've removed my template and now I'm ready to cut the thread. So I need 4 times the height of the book. We need just enough to make sure we don't run out and not too much that can cause things to get twisted and tangled. So 4 times the height is usually just enough. Okay, here's a cool bookbinder's trick. After I thread my needle, I'm going to take that little tail and actually slide it over the top of the needle and pull it through. It wants to stick a little bit on me today, like so. Now, if I drop my needle, I won't lose it. It's stuck in place. Okay, now let's go through the sewing process. I'm going to walk you through this step by step, and this video, of course, is available for you to rewatch and pause as you're going through and sewing your own book. So let's get going. All right, let's get started and bind this book. So I'm starting with the first hole at the top or bottom, it doesn't matter, but I'm starting on the back side. That's because that's where I'm going to create a knot, and I don't want to see it when I'm done. So I'm leaving a tail a couple of inches long, and then I'm going to loop back over the book, back through the same hole on the back side. So I've made a stitch along the top of the book, and I pull it gently tight. Okay, so let's move ahead. So I have that 1 stitch in my tail. I'm going to move down to the next sewing station on the book, like so. I'm going to pull that stitch gently tight. So you can see on the front, I have 1 stitch over the top and 1 stitch across connecting the first and the second station. The thread is on the back side, and I'm going to loop it over to the front and make another stitch around the top of the book, like. All right, so let's keep going. Now the thread is on the back of the book where I have that loop for the second hole, and I'm going to travel down to the third, and again I'll pull that gently tight. Now the thread is on the front, and I will loop back over and through that hole like so, pulling that gently tight. Okay, so we finished the loop on the third hole. Now I'm going to travel down and make a stitch, moving as I move to the 4th sewing station. Just like so. Now as I gently pull that tight, I'm going to again make my loop over the top, so I go back into the 4th sewing station and I pull that gently tight. Okay, now things are going to get a little different. I'm going to make a loop this time around the side of the book and go back into that 4th sewing station, again pulling it gently tight. From there, I'm going to start to complete the pattern. I'm going to go from the 4th sewing station to the 3rd, making a connecting stitch. Then from the 3rd sewing station up to the 2nd, making a stitch. And from the 2nd back to the 1st. Okay, now that we're back at station number 1, we're going to make 2 loops. First, we're going to make a loop over the top, which we've been doing so far on all of these sewing stations. Then I'm going to loop over to the side, and as I come back, I'm going to use my thread and that tail to actually tie a knot here. And this is where you want to make a good strong knot. So the best way to tie off any knots when you're making a book is a square knot. And the thing to remember is over, under, over, or look at this little diagram. Either way, just do the best you can and tie a good strong knot. All right, now that you've got your knot tied, you're ready to trim off your excess thread. Leave just a little bit in case that knot was to come undone and you needed to tighten it back up. You can take the paper clips off, the binding will hold everything together, and now you can set back and flip through and enjoy your beautiful hand-bound Japanese stab book.